Today is when most of us should break out of the Arctic blast. Well, that is if you haven't done so already for those of you in the southern Willamette Valley. But there is a new wrinkle on Thursday evening's forecast that is gonna make me make another video tomorrow to give you guys an update on that. So let's figure out what all this means. First off, the National Weather Service watches and warnings. The ice storm warning continues until 4 a.m. this morning. I do expect freezing rain to continue, however, beyond 4 a.m., especially for the eastern half of the metro area, which is very finicky about when it wants to warm up because that east wind is far more dense than the warmer southerly winds we experience. So I'm trying to look for when that easterly wind gradient gets killed, and it looks like it would be around midday, as I will show in the timeline. So onto the setup for both tonight's system and into tomorrow. So a low pressure system was moving ashore close to the central coast, so much further south than what I thought, but the low mysteriously dissipated and got absorbed by what's called a shortwave trough up north by the Olympic Peninsula and reformed a weaker area of low pressure right around my original landfall location, and that is going to start to move east again during the morning hours. Now when that does so, once it passes Portland's longitude, that will kill the easterly wind gradient, and as a result will warm Portland up finally. Before this happens, it will warm the rest of the Willamette Valley above freezing. As of 1 a.m. Wednesday, Eugene just flipped to a southerly wind. However, it is not warmed significantly above freezing yet, so that process is just starting to begin. I do expect it to work its way up the valley, probably by about 10 to 20 miles per hour, get stalled at the Chelan Mountains as it usually does, and then get stalled at the West Hills until that east wind gradient gets killed entirely. Now for Thursday's system, which I will erase this to make it a clearer image. So there is a stronger area of low pressure situated further off the coast, actually further off than this map would indicate. And that low pressure will cause a front to drape over our area. However, it will also re-increase that east wind gradient, which will bring back that cold easterly wind. However, the cold pool will be retreating, but the wrinkle is with the way the low pressure system dynamics worked from last night into this morning, with how that low pressure system just dissipated and then reformed with the shortwave trough. That means that the cold air is not going to retreat as far as I initially thought, which means the threat of freezing rain for the far east metro area suddenly goes up again Thursday evening. Again, it's just for the east metro area. I would say east to 205, but it does bear watching because there are some higher resolution models that do show it for the entire Portland metro area. So that's what tomorrow's video will be about, to better understand those chances. And because they just popped up tonight, I am going to punt that forecast today. Now, the schedule is slightly behind because I did expect Corvallis and further south to be already above freezing at this time. However, this more affects Portland rather than Eugene because we're having a break in the precipitation right now, and I expect that break to continue minus some off and on showers going until around midday on Wednesday. That's about when the eastern Portland metro area warms up. Now, the precipitation amounts haven't really changed despite the low pressure center moving closer to the Willamette Valley, and that's just because the low pressure center was also weaker than what I anticipated. I am thinking that the Portland area will not reach that super high end for the isolated areas up 3/4 of an inch. My new high end is 6/10 of an inch for the isolated areas closest to the Columbia River Gorge, widespread. I don't expect more than half of an inch. And that's a combined total from yesterday and today. Now again, that east wind ramps up again Thursday regardless of what happens today. So if, again, how I mentioned yesterday, that there is a scenario, albeit very, very unlikely, where that east wind gradient doesn't get killed. If that happens, the east wind would ramp up. The east wind gradient does get killed, it will ramp up anyways. But the cold pool will still be weaker because the highs will be in the mid to upper 30s rather than the mid to upper 20s. Granted, it does depend on the strength of the cold pool and easterly winds. I do expect the western metro area to be closer into the lower to mid 40s, and the Willamette Valley will have minimal effects from this. And again, some high resolution models do produce freezing rain for all of the metro area, though I'm not forecasting that. In fact, I'm only forecasting right now a chance of freezing rain for the eastern metro area, but it's a situation that bears watching. So onto our timeline for Corvallis. I do expect by the time you're up on Wednesday morning / watching this, it will be above freezing, though still in the upper 30s. I do expect to get into the mid to upper 40s during the daytime hours with a high temperature of around 48 degrees for Corvallis before cooling off on Thursday to around 40 degrees and warming back up to the mid 40s. A more typical January day than what we've experienced. Now for the West Metro area in the early morning hours, pockets of freezing rain, temperature around 30 degrees when you're watching this. As we progress through the day, I do expect the West Metro area to bust out of the freezing rain early during the morning hours. And to be clear, that does not mean we will thaw the moment we rise above freezing. It's going to be a process. It's going to take hours, probably the entire day for roads to get it clear, though the busier roads should be pretty well on after about 2 or 3 hours because of the quicker warm-up. High temperature for the western metro area will be around 45 degrees, but it will cool off to around 35 degrees Thursday morning before warming back up into the lower 40s. Mid 40s for areas a little bit more sheltered from the east wind. Timeline for the eastern metro area. So I do have freezing rain continuing till Wednesday midday. I expect right now about 1 o'clock is when Portland breaks out of the freezing rain, because that's when that low pressure system crosses is the critical threshold that would kill that east wind gradient. And then because it's happening in a little bit about an hour later, that does reduce the daytime heating a little bit. So I'm now only predicting a high temperature of 42 degrees rather than in my original high temperature in the mid 40s. Yes, an hour can make a big difference, especially in January with these weaker sun angles. Temperatures will still cool down to around 35 degrees, but I don't have it getting out of the 30s on Thursday because right around 9 o'clock Thursday mornings when that east wind cranks back up, and as a result, bringing that cold air back in, so about 30% chance of freezing rain for areas east of I-205. That's my best estimate at this time. Situation that does bear watching. So on to the 7-day forecast for Corvallis. More typical January days. The next couple of days before the weekend warms things up into the 50s, where Corvallis will remain for the foreseeable future, but also remain wet. For the Portland metro area, freezing rain will begin on Wednesday, changing over to rain showers later during the day. Thursday will be rain for most, if not all, though a chance for freezing rain does exist for areas close to the Columbia River Gorge. I expect a dry day on Friday, though I still expect the east winds to be present. On Saturday, that east wind gradient does get killed again, this time for good, well, for the foreseeable future at least. And then temperatures will slowly rise to around 50 degrees for highs, and what is going to feel very balmy compared to what we just went through. So that's going to be it for this video, and again, this is no longer going to be my final update. That might be tomorrow, depending on how significant this threat on Thursday is. So I will come out with an update on that if it looks more likely that a significant portion of the at least eastern metro area will receive freezing rain. I'll come out with videos on both Wednesday and Thursday. If it looks like just isolated pockets of that, I will just come out with a video tomorrow night and have that be my final update. So we'll see what happens. Regardless, please stay safe out there because it's going to take time for this to thaw. Some extra time getting into wherever you're going tomorrow, though. If you can stay home, I would recommend it for one more day, though you should be fine on Thursday. Otherwise, take care.